It's so hot. It's crazy hot. Come here, Blue. Let's tell how hot it is. It's so hot that cat doesn't care. It's hot. It's so hot that it's hard to fish when it's hot. It's hard. It's August. That's why it's hot. It's hard to fish when it's hot in August. But we got to get out there. We got to do some fish. People like, have made a video in a while. I'm like, yeah, because it's been hot. I've been able to go fish. Well, I've been fishing, but I'm not catching a lot of fish. It's slow in August. That's one thing, and it's hot. So I'll tell you what. Let's just go watch the video. Forget the intro because this cat's not participating. All right, let's go. All right, our first stop was over to Sheep Island. We just took the boat over there, and I didn't bring any bait, but I thought I could find some. And look at all the fiddler crabs. Not really a problem. So I just picked up two. I didn't even have a bucket, so I just got two. I figured I could catch them again. And I put them on this rig, this double drop rig, one on hooks, 2-ounce weight. And also there was a little piece of fish, see that orange thing? Fish bites. It was left over on the hook because it's so hard to get off. So I left it on there, put it in a sand spike, and I felt like I'm just going to throw over in the marsh here in this little grassy area. There was like a little cut in, and I just thought it looked like a good spot. And now with fiddler crabs, you can get puffer and you can get black drum. So I was shooting for a black drum because I do like black drum. And it wasn't too long before I had a bite, and I reeled it in thinking, oh, I got a black drum. But no, it turned out to be a pinfish, my favorite. Hey, they make good bait. Look at them pins. They're going to get me. So I took it off the hook, and I realized the pinfish probably wasn't going after the fiddler crabs, but over the little leftover piece. I got myself hooked. The little leftover piece of fish bites. So I thought, well, let me get that off. Well, easier said than done. That stuff's crazy. And even after I was able to get it off, you know what's going to be left? You know that mesh that's inside it? It was still on the hook. So I put it in my teeth and I plucked it off. Okay, so I went and I got some more fiddler crabs and I loaded them up on there again. Now, like I said, puffer, black drum, ready to go. I'm throwing it out there. I gave it a good little cast in the same spot, and when I reel it back in, I noticed that my bait was gone. So there go my fiddler crabs. So I'm like, maybe I need to try something different because something's obviously picking these off. You know, it could be like puffer that are just picking it off and are not actually taking the hook. So I brought the cast net with me, and there was bait running. It was really far out, and I really couldn't reach it. So I threw the cast net out, and it was also a little windy, so you couldn't really hardly see where the bait was. But I managed to get two. Great cast netting there. I got two minnows, so I'm like, let me put these bad boys on and see if I can't catch something with them. Now, what am I going to catch out there? So I'm in the marsh. I'm over in Montgomery Slough there between Oak Island and Sheep Island on the back end of it. And I'm like, well, there's some trout out there, definitely. There's flounder out there. Not that I can keep one, but they're there. And so that's kind of, maybe a bluefish might have a bluefish run through there. Like, going to be a little one, but I'm just thinking, let me see what I can get with them. But more likely a trout. Hopefully, or a flounder, possibly. And I was getting bites, and I was watching the rod, and like the tip's bending, but nothing's taking it. And when I reeled it in, I realized that it had eaten it. So it probably was a crab picking it off. So again, I tried to get these fish, but they were so far out. This time I got one. I'm like, all right, I'll put one on there and see if I can get some. So I put that bait on. Meanwhile, I'm like, if I'm not going to catch any fish today, at least I can still eat. Now this is, I call it pickleweed, but the actual name of it, I think, is a glasswort. And it's like salty. Yeah, it's so good. Well, in the spring, it's really good because the top of it gets tender, and it does taste like pickles. It's like salty. But this time of year, unless you have a little tender one like that, it can get kind of woody. But those are really good. And then also, this is another plant you can eat on the island out there, and it's called pennywort. And you wouldn't even think about it. It's just like this little round. You've probably seen it grown in your yard. And you just pick it off, and you can eat that too. You can just eat it raw like that, having a salad. I've heard people make it's like Asian dishes a lot. Asian cooking. You can put it in. They make soft drinks out of it, and you can make tea out of it too. So you can just eat it like that. It's really not bad. It's kind of this weird flavor. It might be good like in a salad. But anyway, I didn't want to eat salad. I wanted to eat a fish. And luckily I caught one and I reeled it in and I was like, this is a good sized fish. But when I got it up there, it wasn't a black drum or a trout. It turned out to be this little puppy drum. now I love red drum, but you know, they have to be 18 inches, the slot fish, right? 18 to 27, I think is right. And this guy was probably, if he was hitting 12, I was lucky. So little red drum, he's going back in the water. And we're going to give up on Sheep Island and move on someplace else. So my next spot was to take the kayak out to Davis Canal, and I just parked my little kayak right here, a little inlet between Davis Canal, just between the two marshes. The water was coming out; it was going out, and the water was flowing out of Davis Canal and also out of the marsh. And I thought, where am I going to fish? Behind me. So I've also caught fish there before, so I thought it would be a good spot. So same rig, basically 2 ounce double drop rig with some fish bites on it this time. This time I did want the fish bites on it, give it a little extra flavor. And all I had was some frozen shrimp. So I'm not really, this whole trip I'm not doing very good with my bait. But this is all I had, a half bucket of frozen shrimp. So I just cast it out behind me there. Like again, that is a spot where I've caught some black drum, which is what I'm always looking for. Of course, you're going to catch all the usual suspects. Like this first guy I got right here. He a little pigfish, and they run under them. Sometimes the pinfish will do the same thing. They'll run underneath like the rocks or the oyster beds, and then all of a sudden they'll get hung up. So you'll get a bite and you think you got a fish, and when you pull it up, you try to pull it up, it gets stuck underneath the rock. So you got to finagle it. But look at this little pigfish is like 2 inches. Like I'm going to put him. Here's the second one I caught, same spot. It looks almost like it's like the same fish, right? And I'm like, it looks like a little something I put in my fish bowl. And then I cast out one more time and I got another one. So I thought to myself, maybe casting behind me isn't the smartest move. So I planned out part two. Let's try it again. This time I'm going to cast out to the middle. Let's just see if there's anything in the middle. Now I even know from experience that when I cast out to the middle, usually what I catch is croaker. But sometimes there's some big croaker out there, so you never know. So I thought, okay, let me give it a little whirl here and just put it right out in the middle of the canal. And it wasn't long before I did have a fish on the line, and I was right. It was a croaker, but not even a big croaker, like just a little croaker, like kind of a little disappointing, like 6-inch croaker. So he's going back in the water. Gave it a second cast out there, a couple of casts actually, and caught a couple of more croaker. So I decided I would maybe have to rethink my casting strategy. Behind me didn't work. In the middle of the canal was not working. So I thought I would think about it again. Now, let's go back to those Google Maps right here and take a look. The water's coming out. It's coming down the canal. It's coming out of the channel. So why am I fishing behind myself or in the middle of the canal? Why am I not fishing right like where those arrows are meeting? Because anything that's getting swept down the canal or swept out of the marshes is going to land right there. So I decided, you know what? That's where I'll put my bait. And let's see, I'll just cast a line right there. Let's see if we can catch some fish. And this strategy actually worked, because watch this. I've got my double drop rig. I open up, I cast it right out in front of me right there. There's a ledge there. So to my left, it's about 2 feet of water, and then it drops off to 9 feet into the canal. So I put it like right on that ledge, and it was like mere seconds. Look at that right there. I got a fish on the line, and I could tell the rod was bending. So I'm like, finally I got myself a decent fish. And to my surprise and happiness, it was a black drum. Yay! This is what I've been searching for. But unfortunately, he was decent, but he was undersized. They have to be 14 inches. I usually like to make sure they're 16 before I keep one, because I know I can pull a 16-inch black drum out of the canal. But I was not successful with that one. So step 2, throw it again, same spot. And fish school up. I truly believe this. If you catch one black drum in a spot and you cast out, you're going to catch another black drum. And I'm reeling them in. I've got another good fight on my hands here, but still, I can tell when there's a really big one how much more the rod will bend. And this one wasn't bending that much. So that's all right. I like to catch black drums. So I got another one, and it's, like I said, about the same size. This one might be a little smaller than the other one, but they couldn't be much more than an inch difference, right? So unfortunately, again, too small. So he's going back in to the water. But pretty little fish, great fight, great to eat if you can get a good slot one. So I got one, I got two. Let's go for 3 in a row. Let's go for you ever play hockey? Let's go for the hat trick. I used to play hockey, and the hat trick's 3 in a row. So cast it out again, and lo and behold, here comes another one. Another nice fight. Feels like another fish, but still, again, just not good enough. I just can't seem to pull one out of here. Well, I did say they school up, so right, why am I expecting to catch a big one when they're probably schooled up all in the same size? So, of course, if I catch one, that's going to be, 10 inches, 12 inches? I'm going to catch another one that's in that same size range. And here he is. So anyway, it wasn't long before I was out of frozen bait, had a few pieces left, and that was the last one I caught. So moving on. Now, I like to go to the app Tides for Fishing before I go down to the surf. I like to fish the high tides. You can see the tides rising right there. And if you go to Tides for Fishing, you can check out what the tides are. The other app I like to check out online is Surf Checks, which has, from the Ocean Crest Pier, it shows live footage of what's going on. They have a video camera up there. And you can see right now, look at all those tents, or whatever behemoth thingies are called. There's a million of them, so I'm not ready to go. Also, the wind is blowing like crazy, so I always check that first. I like it to look like this, not too many people, not a lot of waves, tide coming up. All right, I'm ready to go. So I always check those two online sites. So in keeping with my lousy strategy from the last 2 fishing expeditions, I went with the double drop rig, this time with a 4-ounce weight, but still a 1/0 hook, the frozen shrimp, and the fish bites, and I caught, lo and behold, a pinfish. Surprise, surprise. So I decided I'm going to use the pinfish for bait. And the reason is, in August, fish are slow, it's hot, and they don't really want to bite frozen shrimp. It's boring. They're going to snub their noses at it. So you want to really have some fresh bait, the best bait that's going to interest them as possible. And since all I had was frozen shrimp, I decided I would just cut this pinfish up into little chunks and see if I put that on my little 1/0 hook, if I could get something to bite, encourage them with a little fresh fish. And lo and behold, I did. I couldn't believe it. Look at this rod bending. It was like, this is a big fish. Whatever just bit into this was a big fish. In fact, it was so big that it started walking me down the beach. It was running and taking drag, and my hat, meanwhile, was falling off my head, and the strings wrapped around my neck. And I'm like, what do I have on here? What would have bit a little piece of finfish that would be this big? And I thought to myself, probably a stingray, right? Stingrays will eat that, and then but they'll lay down, and this fish wasn't laying down. He was running me down the beach. And so I was like, well, I guess I got to keep up with him. So I'm going to go. Now there were some kids down there in the end, and this fish was getting kind of close to where they were swimming, so I was kind of a little concerned about that. I don't want to get the line, the fish goes out there. I'm not really worried about the fish, but the line wraps around a kid's leg or something like that. It could probably, cut him or something like that. So luckily the dad was there, and he was like, hey guys, get out of the water, let this guy catch his most likely stingray. And so I was fighting it, and then I was actually really surprised as I got it up. It was a shark. Now I'm not surprised that a shark would have bit into a piece of pinfish, but I couldn't believe it was a shark this big. Not that he's huge, but he's like 2 feet or something like that. That I caught this fish on a 1/0 hook. Now, I've said you can catch big fish on little hooks. Well, this is proof, because he's a good look. I'm trying to keep him in the water. He was fighting me like crazy. He's jumping all over the place. He wrapped the whole thing around him. I'm trying to unwind him here. Luckily, I was able to get him unwound and get him back in the water really quickly. And we just I got him untangled and pulled back the line, and then the dad picked him up and kind of gave him a little shove back into the water, get a little oxygen going into his lungs, and he was happy. So there's some fishing strategies for August, but the weather's about to cool and the fishing's really about to heat up. So let's get out there.